Welcome, everyone. We're diving deep today into something pretty fascinating. It's about those moments, when you're completely absorbed in what you're doing, like time just
Yeah,
disappears.
yeah, like you're in the zone.
Exactly. It's called flow. And we'll be exploring this concept using excerpts from lectures by this psychologist, Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi.
Oh, yeah, Csikszentmihalyi. He was really onto something with this whole flow idea.
Definitely. And our mission today is to kind of break down what flow really is, why it's so important, and most importantly, how we can, actually experience more of it in our own lives.
So what do you say we jump right in?
Sounds good to me.
Ooh.
Let's get flowing.
Okay, so one of the things that really struck me about Csikszentmihalyi's work is that he believed this concept of flow isn't just some new age fad.
Right. He saw it as like a fundamental human experience,
Yeah.
something that's been around for like forever.
And he found evidence for that.
Oh, yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Even in like the least technologically advanced societies, those that are really struggling to survive, they still make time for enjoyable activities like art, music, games, things like that.
Hmm.
That's interesting because you'd think survival would be the top priority.
You'd think so, right? But Csikszentmihalyi argued that even when resources are scarce, people still prioritize enjoyment. It's like a basic human need.
It's like saying we're wired for joy.
Exactly. And you know what's even more interesting is that these enjoyable activities are often tied to like rituals and religious practices, things
Yeah.
that connect people to something bigger than themselves.
So it's not just about having fun. It's about something deeper, something more meaningful.
Right. It's about connecting with something beyond the everyday grind, something that gives life a sense of purpose.
That makes a lot of sense. But I'm curious about our modern culture. Does it encourage those kinds of flow experiences? Or are we kind of missing the mark?
Well, that's where Csikszentmihalyi got a little controversial. He believed that cultures could be evaluated, like judged based on how well they promote flow experiences for their people.
Does some cultures are better at it than others?
Basically,
Yeah.
yeah. He wasn't afraid to make those kinds of comparisons, which, ruffled some feathers.
Yeah. I can imagine. Can you give me an example, like a culture that he thought was particularly good at fostering flow?
He often talked about the Shashwap tribe from British Columbia.
Hmm.
They had this really interesting custom where they would like move their entire village every 25 to 30 years.
Wow, every 25 to 30 years. That's a huge undertaking. Why would they do that?
Well, the elders believed that when life gets too predictable, too routine, it loses its meaning, its challenge. And moving forced them to adapt, learn new skills, and kind of re-engage with their environment in a whole new way.
It's like hitting the reset button on life every few decades.
Exactly. It kept them on their toes and prevented them from getting stuck in a rut.
That's fascinating. It's like they intentionally designed their culture to promote growth and new experiences.
Hmm.
But I'm also wondering about the things within us that can hold us back from experiencing flow, like our own personal baggage. I'm thinking about things like self-doubt, fear of failure, all that stuff.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, those are definitely internal obstacles to flow. Csikszentmihalyi called them psychic entropy, and he saw them as like energy leaks, things that drain our mental energy and prevent us from getting in the zone.
Psychic entropy.
Yeah.
I like that. So what did he say about those things, like self-doubt, for example? How does that block flow?
He said that when we're too self-conscious, too worried about what others are thinking, we can't fully lose ourselves in the activity. We're constantly second-guessing ourselves, and that just kills the flow.
That makes sense. Have you ever noticed that when you're trying something new, if you get too caught up in worrying about what others think, you're more likely to mess up?
Totally. It's like your inner critic takes over, and you can't just let go and be in the moment.
Right. But when you can silence that inner critic, things tend to flow much more naturally. It's like you're free to just be.
Exactly. You're not holding yourself back with all those doubts and fears.
And I imagine it's not just about those everyday insecurities. Some people might have deeper psychological issues that make it harder to experience flow.
Oh, yeah, for sure. The Csikszentmihalyi talked about how certain mental conditions like schizophrenia, for example, can make it really challenging to find that sense of focus and absorption that's so crucial for flow.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It really highlights how our mental state can have a huge impact on our ability to enter those flow states.
Absolutely. It's not always just a matter of willpower or positive thinking. Sometimes there are underlying factors that we need to address.
And I imagine external factors like our environment or social circumstances can be just as powerful, right?
Oh, totally. Like Csikszentmihalyi was very aware of how our social and cultural context can either support or hinder flow. He was especially concerned about the impact of oppressive systems like slavery, for example.
I've read about that. He was really troubled by how those systems could crush people's spirits.
Yeah, he talked about how the Caribbean natives, after being enslaved by the Spanish, just lost the will to live. They couldn't find any joy or meaning in their lives anymore because their culture, their freedom had been ripped away.
That's heartbreaking.
Yeah.
It really shows how important it is to create environments where people feel safe and empowered to pursue those things that bring them joy.
Absolutely. It's about nurturing that spark of life that allows people to thrive and to experience those moments of flow.
But even in those really difficult situations, didn't Csikszentmihalyi find examples of people who were still able to experience flow?
Yeah, he did. And those examples are really fascinating because they highlight the power of what he called the autotelic personality.
Autotelic personality.
That sounds intriguing. What exactly does that mean?
Well, these are the people who are like intrinsically motivated, you
Yeah.
know? They find enjoyment in all sorts of things, regardless of whether there's like a reward or not.
So it's not about external validation for them, it's more about the process itself.
Right, they're driven by a sense of purpose, but it's not like an ego thing. It's something deeper.
It's like they have this internal compass guiding them. Yeah, exactly. And Csikszentmihalyi, he really contrasted these autotelic folks with those who are always chasing, like instant gratification. He saw a big difference in the quality of their experiences.
Hmm. That makes me think of that story about Joe Kramer. Remember him, the welder?
Oh, yeah, Joe. He was a classic example of an autotelic personality.
He was the one who built that amazing rainbow system in his backyard, right? Just for the fun of it.
That's the one. He wasn't doing it for money or fame. He just loved the challenge of figuring it out and creating something beautiful.
It really highlights the difference between seeking pleasure and finding true fulfillment, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Joe found flow in the process itself, and that's what made it so rewarding for him.
It makes you wonder if we can all cultivate that kind of autotelic approach to life. Is it something we're born with, or can we learn it?
That's a great question. Csikszentmihalyi believed that while some people might be naturally inclined towards it, anyone can become more autotelic. It's about developing certain habits and mindsets.
So, like, what kind of habits are we talking about?
Well, it starts with becoming more aware of your inner world and your surroundings. Paying attention to what truly engages you, what sparks your curiosity.
So, like self-reflection, basically.
Yeah, and then it's about setting goals that are meaningful to you and finding ways to challenge yourself regularly.
So pushing yourself outside of your comfort zone.
Exactly. It's about stretching your abilities and discovering new things that you enjoy.
And I imagine it also involves shifting your focus from external validation to intrinsic motivation, right?
Absolutely. It's about finding satisfaction in the journey itself, not just the destination.
That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So how do we actually put all of this into practice? Like, where do we even begin?
Well, Csikszentmihalyi found that flow can be experienced in a surprisingly wide range of activities, both physical and mental.
So it's not just about meditation or yoga.
No, not at all. He emphasized the importance of engaging your body and senses through things like sports dance, mindful eating. Even just being out in nature can be flow-inducing.
So it's about bringing that same level of awareness and intention to all aspects of life.
Exactly. It's about being fully present in whatever you're doing, whether it's physical or mental.
I've definitely experienced that with rock climbing. When I'm on the wall, my focus is so intense that everything else just fades away.
There you go. You're in the flow state. Your mind and body are working together in perfect harmony.
It's an incredible feeling. And it's not just physical activities either. Csikszentmihalyi also talked about the power of music.
Oh, yeah, he was a big believer in the transformative power of music. He said it could evoke deep emotions and even help us connect with something larger than ourselves.
But it's not just about passively listening, right?
No, it's about actively engaging with the music, paying attention to the nuances, the structure, the emotions it evokes.
It's like having a conversation with the music.
Exactly. And when you do that, it becomes a much richer experience.
I totally agree. But what about activities that are more mental in nature, like reading or writing or learning new things? Can we find flow in those too?
Absolutely. Csikszentmihalyi believed that the mind is an incredible source of flow experiences.
It's like our own personal playground.
Yeah, exactly. He emphasized the importance of memory in cultivating a rich inner life and the power of language to shape our understanding of the world.
So like reading a good book or having a stimulating conversation can actually be flow-inducing.
Definitely. And so can things like solving puzzles or learning a new language or diving deep into a subject that fascinates you.
It's about challenging your mind and expanding your horizons.
Right. It's about keeping your mind active and engaged.
This is all really interesting, but many people associate flow with leisure or creative pursuits. Can we actually find flow in something as mundane as work?
That's a great question, and it's a common misconception that work can't be a source of flow. Many of us have been conditioned to see work as a chore, something we have to do, rather than something we want to do.
Yeah, it's like that whole work hard, play hard mentality.
Right, but Csikszentmihalyi believed that work, like any other activity, has the potential to become a flow experience.
So it's not about the job itself, but about how we approach it.
Exactly. He pointed to the example of Juliana B., an alpine farmer who found immense satisfaction in her daily work.
Wait, I think I remember her story. Her work was far from easy, but she found a sense of freedom and purpose in it.
That's right. She wasn't driven by external rewards or recognition. She simply loved the process of farming and caring for her land.
It's a beautiful example of how we can find meaning and fulfillment in even the most ordinary tasks.
Absolutely. And it highlights the importance of finding alignment between our skills and our work. When our work challenges us in just the right way and we're able to use our abilities to their fullest, that's where flow can really take hold.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where we're engaged but not overwhelmed.
Exactly. And Csikszentmihalyi believed that this applies to any kind of work, whether you're a farmer, a teacher, an artist, or an entrepreneur.
So it's not about the specific job, but about our mindset and our approach.
Precisely. And one of the key ingredients he emphasized was intrinsic motivation.
Mhm.
Finding a sense of purpose and meaning in the work itself rather than relying on external rewards like money or status.
So it's about connecting with the deeper why behind our work.
Right, because when we're driven by a sense of purpose, we're more likely to find joy and satisfaction in the process, even when it's challenging.
That makes a lot of sense, but it's easier said than done, right? Like, how do we actually
Yeah.
cultivate that intrinsic motivation, especially when we're stuck in jobs that we don't necessarily love?
Well, it's definitely not always easy, but Csikszentmihalyi suggested we start by focusing on the aspects of our work that we do enjoy, even if it's just a small part of the overall job.
So like finding those little pockets of flow.
Exactly. And then it's about trying to expand those pockets.
Hmm.
Finding ways to bring more of what we love into our work, even if it means making small adjustments or taking on new challenges.
So it's about taking ownership of our work experience and finding ways to make it more fulfilling.
Right. And that might involve talking to your boss about taking on new responsibilities or seeking out opportunities for professional development, or even just shifting your perspective on the tasks you're already doing.
So it's about being proactive and creative in shaping our work lives.
Exactly. And he also drew inspiration from ancient wisdom to illustrate this point. He often talked about the Chinese concept of wu wei, which is often translated as effortless action or non-doing.
Effortless action.
Yeah.
That sounds almost paradoxical. How can we do something without doing it?
Well, it's not about literally doing nothing. It's more about finding that state of flow where your actions are so aligned with your skills and your goals that effort seems to melt away.
So it's like being in the zone where everything just clicks.
Exactly. And Csikszentmihalyi illustrated this idea with the story of Ding the Master Butcher from the Taoist text Zhuangzi.
Oh yeah, I've heard of Zhuangzi. It's full of these amazing parables and stories. What was it about Ding that made him such a great example of Wu Wei?
Well, Ding was said to be able to carve an ox with such precision and grace that it looked effortless, like he was dancing with the knife.
Wow, that's incredible. It's like he would become one with the task.
Exactly. And when asked about his secret, Ding explained that it wasn't about technique, but about finding the way, a state of complete absorption in the activity.
So he wasn't thinking about what he was doing, he was just doing it.
Right. He was so attuned to the task that his actions flowed naturally without any conscious effort.
That's amazing. It reminds me of those times when I'm writing and the words just seem to pour out of me effortlessly.
Yeah.
Like I'm not even thinking, I'm just channeling the ideas.
Exactly. You've tapped into that state of flow where the separation between you and the task disappears.
It's a powerful feeling.
Yeah.
But achieving that kind of effortless action in our work isn't always easy, is it?
No, it's definitely not something that happens overnight, but it's something we can cultivate through practice and intention.
So what are some practical steps we can take to bring more of that Wu Wei into our work lives? So how can we bridge this gap, between this ancient philosophy of effortless action and like the reality of our modern work lives?
Yeah, it's tough, right? Our jobs can be so hectic and demanding. It's hard to imagine finding that kind of zen in the middle of all that.
Exactly. It feels like a completely different world.
Well, Csikszentmihalyi had some ideas about that. He said we should start by making sure our tasks are aligned with our skills. If our work is too easy, we get bored. If it's too hard, we get overwhelmed.
So it's about finding that sweet spot where we're challenged but not defeated.
Right. It's like Goldilocks in the porridge. Not too hot, not too cold, just right.
I like that analogy.
Yeah.
And what else did he suggest?
He said setting clear goals is super important, breaking down those big, overwhelming tasks into smaller, manageable steps.
So we can track our progress and feel a sense of accomplishment along the way.
Exactly. It's like those video games where you level up with each quest you complete. It keeps you motivated and engaged.
I can see that.
Yeah.
But I think the most important thing you mentioned earlier was finding meaning and purpose in our work,
Yeah.
even if it's not some glamorous dream job.
Right. It's about connecting with the deeper why behind what we do.
Because when we believe in what we're doing, it makes the whole experience more rewarding.
Exactly. It's not just about clocking in and clocking out. It's about making a contribution something that matters.
So how do we actually find that meaning, especially when we're stuck in jobs that we don't necessarily love?
Well, it starts with a shift in perspective. Instead of focusing on what you dislike about your job, try to identify the aspects that do bring you some satisfaction.
Even if it's just one small thing.
Right. It could be anything.
Yeah.
Helping a coworker, solving a tricky problem, learning something new, whatever sparks a little bit of joy for you.
And then build from there.
Exactly. See if you can find ways to bring more of those enjoyable elements into your workday. Maybe you can talk to your boss about taking on different responsibilities, or maybe you can find ways to be more creative in how you approach your current tasks.
This is about taking ownership and being proactive.
Right. And remember, even small changes can make a big difference. It's about gradually shifting your mindset and creating a more fulfilling work experience for yourself.
It's like we're sculpting our own flow state within the constraints of our jobs.
Exactly. And as we cultivate more flow in our work lives, it can actually have a ripple effect on other areas of our lives too. Our relationships, our communities, the world around us.
That's an interesting thought. How does that work?
Well, when we're in a flow state, we're more present, more engaged, more connected to the world around us.
Yeah.
And that can make us more compassionate, more creative, more effective in everything we do.
So it's like flow spills over into all aspects of our being.
Exactly. It's not just about feeling good, it's about becoming a better version of ourselves.
That a better version of ourselves can create a better world.
Precisely. Csikszentmihalyi believed that flow is not just a personal experience. It's a social phenomenon that can transform communities and even entire societies.
That's a powerful idea.
Right.
It suggests that by nurturing flow in our own lives, we can actually contribute to a more positive and fulfilling world for everyone.
Exactly. It's like a chain reaction of positivity.
Wow, this has been an incredible journey into the world of flow. We've learned so much about how it can enhance our lives, transform our work, and even make the world a better place.
It's been a real pleasure exploring these ideas with you.
Likewise. And to our listeners out there, remember, flow is not some mystical state reserved for a select few. It's something we can all experience if we're willing to cultivate it in our lives.
So keep seeking out those flow states, keep learning, keep growing, and keep sharing that positive energy with the world.
Until next time, keep flowing.